something is happening across education, across healthcare, and across other caring professions. The people who care the most are leaving. And they're not leaving because they stop believing in the work. And they're not leaving because they've become less capable. They're leaving because the work now requires more energy than the systems are designed to support. I've been in education for 20 years, as a teacher, a leader, an administrator, and now working with educators in schools. I've seen this up close and personally. The most critical resource in service professions is not funding, it's not policy, and it's not strategy. It is human energy. The ability to think clearly, to care consistently, to stay present day after day. But we rarely design for that. Instead, we treat human energy as if it were unlimited. As if people can absorb more responsibility without support. As if care could stretch forever without cost. When that happens, systems don't collapse dramatically. They erode slowly, quietly. And when we finally notice the damage, we often give it the wrong name. We often call it burnout, and we treat it like it's a personal problem. But when the same pattern appears across professions, across countries, and across people who love what they do, burnout is not a personal failure. It's a signal. The system's telling you the design can't hold the weight. And when you start to see it this way, you start to notice something else. There's an order we keep getting wrong. Me, you, us. Burnout's what happened when we reverse that order and pretend that people can run on empty. Burnout's what happens when human energy is ignored in our own habits, in our roles, and in the conditions we work inside. If burnout were just about people not being strong enough, the solution would be simple. We would tell them to be more positive, more resilient, better at managing stress. But burnout doesn't begin when people stop caring. It begins much earlier. It begins when responsibility grows, but capacity does not. It begins when emotional work becomes invisible. It begins when normal slowly turns into something that costs you more than you can give. When that happens, you don't break all at once. You adapt. You try harder. You try and carry more than you should for longer than you can. But here's the hardest part. When you're inside these kinds of systems, you do not notice the design. You think it's you. You blame yourself. That's what I did. I blamed myself. Now, I did not come to education by accident. I was obsessed with learning before I ever sat in a classroom. I wanted to be a teacher long before I knew what school really was. And for the longest time, I built my life around that work until there came a moment I never expected to have. I remember standing in front of everything I had ever created. Years of notes, ideas, plans, solutions I still believed in. And realizing I could not keep going. And it wasn't because I stopped caring. It had happened because caring had become unsustainable. I was exhausted. I was depressed. I was unwell. What looked like a loss of motivation was actually collapse. But it was a predictable result of a design that kept demanding more than a person could sustain. But you know what? That's when I learned something really important. That's when I understood something incredibly clear. Burnout wasn't about what I lacked. It was about what the systems were designed to demand and what they were designed to support. And what they weren't supporting at all was human energy. In service professions, human energy is infrastructure. We often think of infrastructure as the things that hold a place together. But in a school, a hospital, or a nonprofit, the load-bearing structure is the energy of the people. When that energy is depleted or drained, everything still looks fine until it doesn't. You cannot keep adding weight to a structure without supporting what holds it up. Cracks appear. Stress increases. Pressure builds. People do not leave because they stop caring. They leave because the structure can no longer hold the weight. And this is happening not just in education, but in healthcare, social services, and so many other professions every day. But in my own field, education, it shows up in a very specific way. We took a beautiful value and we turned it into a design principle. We built systems around 2 words: students first. It sounds beautiful. It comes from a place of love. But the outcome has been something different. We've designed systems that require educators to sacrifice themselves to prove they care. But here's the uncomfortable truth. You cannot put students first while exhausting the adults they depend on. When teachers are treated like a battery that never is going to run out, students lose. They lose stability. They lose experience. They lose the people who are meant to guide them. This is because we're getting the order wrong. Me, you, then us. And we call the collapse normal, but it doesn't have to be. So the question becomes, if this is a design problem, how do we begin to redesign it? To change the design, we have to see where the strain is actually happening. To do this, I analyzed 4 areas of professional life, but today I'll just focus on one. Workload and expectations. This is where many people quietly disappear. I once worked with a teacher. She was ready to quit. She was exhausted, and she was blaming herself. The first thing we did was take a look at the things she could control. I like to call this taking an honest inventory. She audited her personal systems. She redesigned her feedback loops so she wasn't grading until 11 o'clock at night. She restructured her classroom routines so students took more ownership and she took less home. By tightening the systems that she could control, she stopped leaking energy into the chaos. She was able to create a baseline energy so she could do her work well. But that was only the first part. Once her workload was visible, she could also see cracks in the systems around her. That clarity made change possible. Expectations were renegotiated. Responsibilities were clarified. Some support was finally put in place. And that's when something amazing happened. She didn't just survive, she stayed. And her passion for education was renewed. That's what happens when we get the order right. Me, then you, then us. Let me explain what I mean by that. It starts with me first. This is your internal work. You ask yourself questions like, does my operating system, my schedule, my habits, my boundaries, are they designed to support me? Do I have the knowledge and skills and know-how that I need to do this work? Am I carrying anything that's not actually mine to hold? Next is the you. This is where we take a look at our role compared to the people right in front of us. For teachers, it's students. For leaders, it's their staff. When we design better systems for them and provide aligned support, we stop wasting their energy and ours. Finally, there's the us part of the sequence. This is where we take a look at the big picture, the policies, the rules, the structures we all live by. When the individual is clear, me, and the support is healthy, you, we can finally build an us that's designed for humans. This is just a part of what I call the teacher's first approach. The teacher's first approach is a professional sustainability framework that helps us see where strain exists and redesign conditions to fix it. It's not about putting teachers above students. It's about recognizing that institutions are only as strong as the people doing the work inside them. It's about putting sustainability before collapse. That's what happens when we get the order right. Me, you, us. What's happening in our professions is not a lack of heart, and it's not a personal failure either. It's a design failure we've all learned to live with. But design can change. If we want systems that last, we have to get the order right. I'm going to say it one more time. Me, then you, then us. When we design for human energy, people don't have to choose between the work they love and staying whole. Experience stays instead of leaking out. Care stops being punished with exhaustion. Sustainable professions are not built by asking people to give more of themselves. They're built by creating environments where people can stay while doing the work that matters. Never forget, human energy is infrastructure. When the people doing the work can thrive, our institutions can finally thrive too. Thank you.